What's the deal with shield captains on Dawneagle Jetbike anyway? It's a brave new world out there if you're an Imperial player. Since the release of the Custode book, it seems like everybody and their mom that's playing Imperials in general, and don't say Imperial Soup. Soup doesn't exist anymore. Anybody that's playing Imperial seems to save 480 points for a Supreme Command detachment of 3 of these bad boys right here, a shield captain on Dawneagle Jetbike. These were painted out by Studio Bits, myself and Tim here at the studio did a little combo work. I think our friend Parker did a little bit on this guy right here. But overall, we finally got him fieldable, at least to a tabletop level. I do want to do a little bit more detail work on him, but I feel like this is good enough to share with you all right here. Now, before we get into why they are so good and why everybody's feeling these things, why you can always plan on seeing 3, and maybe some tips on how to deal with them on the tabletop and how to play them if you're on the Imperial side, let's talk about these models real quick. So there's 2 different types of jet bikes that you can see here. You've got the compensator with the compensator spear. No, I'm just kidding. This is the Gryfalcon, I believe is how it's pronounced, jet bike from Forge World. This was available for a number of years. It came out relatively after, I guess, the Space Marine jet bike came out for Horus Heresy. And then obviously early in the year we see the Dawneagle jet bike, the smaller plastic one, but it's definitely, I feel like it's almost more detailed than the Forge World one right here. Now both of them obviously have their pros and cons. I like using the Forge World one personally because you look at this jet bike, you can tell he's somebody important, whereas these guys, while cool, they all look the same for the most part, right? So unless you only just have 3 in your army, there's no real way to designate them, although I have seen people put the storm shield bits on the front here, which I think is pretty neat to say, hey, this is literally my shield captain. See, there's a shield on it. But unfortunately, we didn't do that for ours, but we could go back. We got bits. Bits is sort of the things we do here, right? So these guys right here, I think this one is $33 from Forge World. This Dawneagle Jetbike you can get in a box of 3 for $60 currently, plastic, Games Workshop, of course. I believe as of recording, they were sold out on their website. Now you're probably wondering, hey, what's that flying stand you got there? This is a magnetized flying system developed by the Magnet Baron. Made its debut at LVO this year at their booth, and we caught up with them at Adepticon, and I was like, yo, this is perfect. I need something for my Custode jet bikes. And they threw a pack of them at me and said, hey, just talk about us. And I said, oh, bro, yeah, I was going to buy them from you. I was going to talk about you anyways, but here we are. We have terms. So I'm bringing it to you. And why it's so cool is the fact that it's literally a system. You can get them in pretty much any height you want, but this one seems to hold the weight of, it's kind of like a little bumblebee here. It's hard to balance on a magnet, right? So you've got this ball bearing at the end. You've got a recessed magnet. I believe that this is a magnet. This is recessed, of course, it's painted over some, but not too bad. We sealed it up. We used some thicker Krylon spray right here, and then this is a magnet down here on our base, our custom base from Elric's Hobbies. So it's kind of like a system, and what's neat about it is you don't have to worry about, once you magnetize all your things, you don't have to worry about, hey, how the heck am I going to put that away? How am I going to store that to transport it? It literally breaks down into the profile of the bike itself once you magnetize the arms and the stand itself. And if anybody gives you crap about, hey, I could see you true line of sight because the stem's so high, I would be like, oh yeah? Well, how about now? Because if you're gonna come at me all wrong like that during the game, well, I'm gonna retort in kind, I suppose. But I've been super pleased with this magnet system by them, of course. That's why I wanted to show it to you. But also, I wanted to talk about the Dawneagle Captains because I've been feeling them just as much as everybody else. And you know what? Sorry, not sorry. Now, paint-wise, if you're trying to emulate this paint scheme, it's actually pretty easy. We've done the gold, how to paint golds, at least once here on the channel with the Vanis Hammer Hands from Age of Sigmar. We painted them up with the same metals, believe it or not. So most good golds start with a bronze or a copper, and this is no exception. So Army Painter True Copper to Greedy Gold to Bright Gold, and then a little bit of, oh, this is Cadmium Black. That is not what we want. Scratch that, rewind it. You're going to want a little bit of Burnt Umber. Umber is pretty ubiquitous. You can find it in any range. but I find that the best one to work with airbrush wise always seems to be the Vallejo Model Air, so that's my go-to right there. So all of that will work and get you up into those fresh shades. Use that umber for the cutback. That's that nice warm gold glow you see right there. And it actually comes into play as well because I use that umber to burn out right here and then hit it with a little black on top, just to give it some richness, but also some depth right there. And you can see more of that umber right there. For the reds, also very simple. I think we've done several tutorials on how we get those. So the reds are worked up from Chaos Red to Dragon Red over to Pure Red itself. And then probably a little bit of orange in some spots, but it doesn't look like I did it on here. Oh, maybe on his hair right there. We add a little bit of orange to the mix just to pop it at that very top. Oh, and speaking of popping it on the top, the very edges of the gold right here is a little bit of silver mixed in with the brightest gold right here. Bright gold. We just mix in a little bit. I think it's plate mail metal. So that's how we get up to that level. And then this is just your normal metals, plate mail, gone back over, dry brushed kind of black metal. And then for the screens and everything, we just used or worked it up from a turquoise. I think it was the Stegadon to, I want to say, Sotek green to Temple Guard blue. But they have that same line. P3 makes a great arcane blue, and you can work it around that and stuff. So it's all pretty much the same. A little bit of pallid witch flesh here on the very ends will get you that pop around all the corners and everything. And then to bring all the gems together, we just added a little bit of the Wonder Paint. Where is it? Right here. It's called Metal Medium from Vallejo. It's a great, cool base. And what this is all we did was take our middle turquoise right there, which I think was the Sotek green from Games Workshop, and we mixed in a little metal medium, and look, you've got an instant turquoise metal to put on all your gems. That spot kind of highlights all those blues together onto the Custode Shield Captain right there. So I was really happy with it. It's a very, very classic scheme, but that's what I remember from seeing all the Horus Heresy artwork 15 years ago. And there's some fresher schemes out there, don't get me wrong, and don't feel like you have to use those reds. But for me, this is the only Custode color scheme in my book, even though there's some other ones that look pretty fresh in the new codex. So now we showed off our hobby guns. Let's work out our brain muscles right here. Shield Captain on Dawneagle Jetbike is 160 points. Do not take him with his Misera Quarter. That is a fool's buy. You don't want to spend extra points. I think it's 15, totally not worth it. For these guys, 480 points, making up your Supreme Command Detachment and giving you one extra command point towards your army right there. Stat line, he's basically a Space Marine Chapter Master for the most part. Clocking, hitting everything on 2s, re-rolling his 1s for himself and other friendly custodies around him. Strength 5, toughness 6, wounds 7, 5 attacks on the charge. Plus, he's re-rolling with his his Interceptor Lance, re-rolling failed wound rolls on the charge, which is so clutch right there. And of course, he moves 14, auto advances 20, so he's gonna get up in people's grills and be places that you don't expect it. Drawback is that he is a character, so if he is the closest target, he can be targeted. So keep that in mind. He's not invulnerable. In most of the games, these guys will die in your army, but the amount of grabassery and just harassing your enemy's flanks and actually killing power, it way outweighs the fact that they will die. Now, there's a couple of strategies that you can play when they do eventually die that hopefully will allow you to maybe make that final coup de grace as well back to your opponent there. They also have Hurricane Bolters, which is very important to remember, because at 12 inches, you're getting 12 shots with these bad boys, so rapid fire 6. And most of the time with a movement of 14, you're going to be able to get within 12 inch range. And a Hurricane Bolter, while it doesn't have any AP, forcing your opponent to take remember, you're hitting on 2s, re-rolling 1s. You're doing a lot of hits. At strength 4 against things that are par, you're going to force most things on par with you to take 6 saves. If they're less toughness, they're going to be taking like 8 saves. And a squad taking 8 saves is probably going to have a save of 4 up. So right there, right off the bat, you're losing a chunk of a squad, forcing them morale, hopefully in a lot of cases. On single models, It can be even more devastating. It's a good way to try to blow away drone screens and stuff. Get rid of just anything that is hard to get line of sight to with these guys. They can work some corners and do the Lord's work there. So that's why, in a nutshell, these guys are so powerful. But they get even... Oh, and we didn't even touch on their special abilities. These guys are scoring. They can hold objectives over things that can't hold objectives. So right there, they're scoring. They have the Aegis of the Emperor, so they have a 4-up invulnerable save. And we're going to talk about a couple ways to get them down to 3 real quick. They also get a 6-up Feel No Pain save against mortal wounds or attempts to inflict mortal wounds. Well, I guess they just happen if you hit in the psychic phase only. So if you're getting blasted with mortal wounds in the psychic phase, you may want to remember, hey, shoot, I get a 6-up. That's pretty cool. So Smite spam, a little bit of resiliency, but not much, but they do have 7 wounds. Real quick, Warlord traits. You're probably never going to take these guys as a Warlord unless you're just playing a pure Custodes army, because if you're taking them as a detachment in an Imperial army, most likely you're taking him Imperial Guard. Most likely, currently, summer of 2018, you're taking Grand Strategist as your Warlord on your commander. So you're not going to take a Warlord trait. However, if you are, I may suggest having a 5-up Feel No Pain as your Warlord trait. Superior creation right there is very superior in all ways. Having one dude with that definitely does the Lord's work right there. Let's talk about stratagems, because there's some things you need to know. First off, you want to always play, if you're taking 3 of these guys, open the vaults, and what that does is allows you to take 2 relics from a list here. And fortunately, they both pretty much do the same thing. You've got the Ulrich Aliquas, Aquilus, I can almost talk, in the Eagle's Eye. Both get you down to a 3-up invulnerable save, and the Aquilas allows you to reroll failed charge rolls now, which is pretty clutch because these guys are moving so quick. When you do get to charge, you do get to reroll failed wound rolls with a strength 6 weapon, because they're +1 on the charge. So pretty clutch right there. If you do want to hedge your bets and you have extra command points to spend, definitely playing Victor of the Blood games on 1 or 2 or possibly 3 of your guys is probably recommended. For 2 command points, this allows you to get 1 reroll to hit, to wound, or save reroll for this model in each turn. So in the off case that you actually roll multiple 1s, that could be a thing. However, it really comes into play with the wound roll and the save roll. Really, that's what I find myself generally using this reroll for. You also get, with Grand Strategist, a reroll on any model in your army, believe it or not. So if you have to and you fail a bunch of saves, there's a chance that you can pull through and keep, at least 1 wound on one of your shield captains during a game. I've seen them limp along for far longer than they should. Remember too, you use the stratagem when you set up the Custodes character. So what that's going to do is also allow you, if you already have your Grand Strategist Warlord on the tabletop from your guard army, then when you set these guys up and play this, you're going to get to roll for each command point, and potentially on a 5-up get a command point refunded back to you. So it's a nice little kind of combo that really synergizes up pretty well. If, or more like when, the shield captain dies. So let me put it in perspective where we're at right now. We have 2 shield captains that are going to have a 3-up invulnerable save. At least one of them is going to be able to reroll per right here, and 1 is going to be able to reroll charges. The third is only going to have a 4-up invulnerable save. However, you can still play stratagems and rerolls, and things per the norm in using your command points. However, there is another command right here that you may want to be aware of. 2 CPs. Whenever a Custodes character is slain before removing the model from the battlefield, it can immediately shoot as if it were the shooting phase, or fight as if it were the fight phase. So depending on when you die, you may just take your opponent along with them, because 5 attacks, again, at strength 6, if you were on the charge, rerolling wounds, is nothing to sneeze at -3 D3 damage. Even the Hurricane Bolters, and I've actually done this, I died. I had a shield captain die. I activated this because there was 1 wound left on a Riptide directly in front of me. And sure enough, the Hurricane Bolters came through and dealt that last wound on a Riptide model. Was that worth the 2 command points? Yes, absolutely. Riptides are very, very bad. And the ability to kill one was good. So we'll take that all day, every day. And there is one more very exciting stratagem you should be well, worried or aware of, depending on which way you look at it. Let's find it here. There it is. Stooping Dive. A lot of people get this one wrong. They just assume that it's a heroic intervention, which of course you can do with these guys if you're within 3 inches and somebody declares a charge. Stooping Dive allows you, at the end of your opponent's charge phase, to initiate a charge if you are within 12 inches of an enemy unit. So it allows them to get closer to you, and then poof, 3 command points, you pop it off. You charge in with this bad boy. And let me tell you what, that may just wreck somebody's plans. No chance to overwatch, no chance for nothing. But let me tell you what, you do not want that heat on your backside if you do not realize it could happen right there. So lots of cool stratagems that you can play on these guys, you know, that for the most part explains why so many people are taking them on the tabletop. How do you play against shield captains if you have the unfortunate, well, opportunity, whatever the opposite of opportunity is, to be set up across from an army that contains 3 of these bad boys? Well, some tips for you is obviously anything with 3 damage, anything forcing these guys to make invulnerable saves instead of their normal 2-up saves is clutch, because they'll make those all day, every day, and then probably take the free reroll on the one failed 1-up save that you probably caused. Because of their high toughness, it's tough to get stuff through on them. You have to dedicate firepower, strong firepower to deal with them, but for the most part, as long as you stay true, they will drop after an application. Fusion, Melta, all those things, getting in close, running up on them, negating out their protective character special rule, really tends to wreck their day. But don't get it twisted, you need to come correct. You need to grab 3 of those, each type of those weapons, to solidify your ability to get that kill shot through, because these guys will surprise you. Do not sleep on them. They are incredibly resilient, especially with the amount of rerolls and shenanigans that the Imperial player, a good Imperial player, can get on you. So pick your powerful weapons, make sure you can target them, and don't let up until they are DED dead. But then even realize, even when they're DED dead, they might not be DED dead, and bring you along with them. So that is it for this one. I really enjoyed talking to you about some of my favorite models out there in the game right now, and just the fact that started working on a Custode army late last year. Actually, it was about this time last year, give or take. I think they are debuted all the new models at last year's Horus Heresy event and Weekender. And then we saw all the plastic kits come out this year. It was just really great. And I've just had a special place. Custodes have really had a special place in my heart since all the artwork and everything came out 13, 14 years ago for the Horus Heresy card game, and all of the art picture books and all that stuff. And then the novels, of course, came out in 2006. So I love the opportunity to show you guys some of my personal models and talk about them and tell you why I think they are good on the tabletop and give you that tactical insight there. So we worked out all our muscles today. There's nothing else for me to say except for make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you can be the very first to like and comment on all my videos.